The world we live in faces large challenges, challenges that are existential for humanity, in need of solutions. In order to develop these solutions, we need radical interdependence, entrepreneurship, leadership, and passion. Bringing leaders together in an action-oriented community is essential. B for Good Leaders is building a global cooperative community in which entrepreneurship works together. Every month, we design a leadership dialogue in which you can learn and interact with influential leaders. Welcome to this month's edition of the B for Good Dialogue.
Good afternoon and welcome to the second edition of our Leaders Dialogue. My name is Leen Zevenbergen and I am a co-founder of B for Good Leaders. And today in this beautiful studio, I'm accompanied by my colleague Francine Lemos. I practiced on the name many times and I know her for a long time, so still going wrong. Francine Lemos, who is a board member of B Lab Global, but also a colleague at B for Good Leaders. Today we host this event from a phenomenal studio in Eindhoven in the Netherlands that is being sponsored by one of our partners, iTeam Global. And in the coming hour and a half, we will talk about the power of coalitions. That is the theme of today. And we have chosen this theme because it is very related to two of the tracks that we will have in the summit in Amsterdam in May 11 and 12. And those two tracks are leadership and regenerative economy. So in the business dialogues, the leader dialogues, we're building up to the summit of May in Amsterdam. And we are delighted to have three guests, three experts on coalition building today in our midst. Denise Hills, Shaun Russell, and Leandro Machado, who will be part of our discussion today. And of course, we have all of you. And you are the main part of this discussion. So we would like to really encourage all of you today to join in as much as you want in our discussion. Ask questions. This is not about us. It is basically about you and sharing your ideas, questions, remarks, whatever you want to do. Also, besides all of us and all of you and the guests, we have Marcello, my co-founder in B for Good Leaders, who maybe we can say hello and you can say a quick hello, Marcello, to us.
Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be with you and to see all your faces. We are in touch with, many of us are in touch with each other. And we are very enthusiastic about what's coming next. I think in the process of today, we will share a bit more, but I leave it to Leen and Francine to kick it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcello. Thank you for being here. And I'm sure you will have many questions in the ongoing discussion. What is this Leaders Dialogue all about? As you all know, the world that we live in is rapidly changing. Many industries fundamentally change. And that is what we call systemic change. And that is good, but it is also risky and it is challenging. And systemic change needs courageous leaders, you. And the goal for B for Good Leaders is to bring those courageous leaders together and let them share not only what they think, but let them also act together. So let's not stay theoretic and only talk, but let's act together to build this systemic change. Therefore, we are creating this space, these leaders' dialogues, combined with some great thinkers every month.
Yeah, and as you know, we do believe that entrepreneurs and business leaders are the key change makers who can unite their forces, their people, and their industry in order to build a new and flourishing economy. And we are here building a close-knit group of committed business leaders, and this is important because we want the ones who are truly committed to shift the system, as Lynn just mentioned. And we need to shift not only the economy, but we need to shift markets, paradigms, and behaviors for this economy that we all dream about. The first step that B for Good Leaders did was the summit in Rome last year, where we gathered more than 700 leaders. And during 2 days, together, they co-create our declaration. Declaration is a very important piece for us because it contains everything that we stand for. And we asked the leaders to sign for this declaration to commit to become part of the B for Good Leaders. So I invite you all now to read together our declaration. We have a short video, and during the video, please not only read it aloud, and pay attention to the meaning of the words and what is behind it. It's really powerful.
B for Good Leaders Declaration. As B for Good Leaders, we commit to reframe the meaning of leadership by 1. Embracing radical interdependence, the fundamental principle governing life on Earth, as the golden rule for decision-making, leading to a regenerative impact. 2. Considering at least the next generation of humans in every business decision. 3. Measuring what matters to integrate systemic value creation into our definition of profit. 4. Challenging extractive economic models and taking a stand for the common good. 5. Mobilizing finance as a catalyst to transform the business perspective from short-termism to long-term shared value creation. We commit to guiding our companies and organizations to create a purpose-driven model that creates value for all. Through this joint leadership statement, we lay the foundation for collective actions and alliances, clearing the path for a new, regenerative economy.
This declaration was created not by us, but by the 700 people who visited Rome. And that's what makes it even stronger. And it was a pretty emotional moment. I can still remember that at the end of the summit, we had about 20 young leaders from Nativa who were called harvesters. They went to all the breakouts. They captured all the discussion and the material that was produced there and brought it together into this declaration that they created for all of us. So it is a powerful declaration because it's not 1 or 2 people who made it up, but it's a whole group of people who made it up and therefore all signed it. So people came to the piece of paper, the big declaration, and all took a pen and they signed it. And that is, it's still, when I think about it, it's still very powerful. And that is the power of communities building something strong for the future. So if I may ask you, is there anyone in the audience in your group that would like to comment on this? And that is Tom. I think Tom Fels wanted to say something. Tom?
I think the signing of the Declaration of Interdependence cemented the commitment of those who were in attendance, and I hope set the foundation for what others might expect if they choose to become part of our network, because it was a pioneering time together. So yeah, very special memory.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments from any of you who would like to share some of your thoughts?
Let me bring some contributions for the discussion. I think it's maybe an amazing time to rethink about the role of the leadership. As a leaders of a companies that brings impact for the whole world, we generate impact every single day that we work. And how could we, like knowing this kind of impact, mobilize for a collective action for to align the goals and commitments of our companies, of ourselves, of our causes, in order to promote a better movement in terms of leadership that shares purpose, and in the same time could bring others in redirected leadership.
Thank you. No, thank you. That is, and what we also think is combine it with action, and that we talk, we think, and we act. And before we head to the main theme of today, building coalitions, I would like to introduce somebody else who is in the audience today, and that is Eric Ezekieli.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Eric. I'm sure I pronounce your name wrongly always, but I try hard. Eric is a founder of Nativa, one of the co-founders of Nativa, and an important partner for us in the summit in Rome, but also in the summit in Amsterdam. And we are working with Nativa to explain how we intend to make the declaration more than just words, but real action. So Eric, maybe you can share with us some of your thoughts.
Yeah, actually, when I read the declaration, I've read it dozens and dozens of times. I really feel kind of overwhelmed. When we really do what is written in the declaration, we have transformed the world. So it's a very, very powerful North Star about the priorities for our future. And it is also the driving mechanism which underlies the functioning of a new form of governance. I think most of you or all of you know the benefit corporations. And the benefit corporations are guided by these kind of principles, the kind of guidelines, which are actually the purpose, which goes beyond profit. And what we thought when we drafted the corporation, the declaration, was to conceive, to imagine, and to design the entire flow around the summit in a way that is similar to the functioning of a benefit corporation. So having the declaration guide the actions and having a mechanism to really align all the participants in order to act, in order to amplify action, in order to create this kind of impact we want to achieve and to really play the role of leadership we want to play. So, Francine, maybe you have a couple of slides to show to make it clearer. Or shall I show them?
No, we show the first one now.
Okay. So try to think the declaration, once again, as a North Star, and the entire summit as kind of working as a corporation itself, a live machine. And acting as a benefit corporation is what allows us to exploit our full potential. And if you go on one more slide, we'll see a very clear example. Most of you know about Patagonia, which is a kind of iconic company which has been playing this game of using business as a force for good for a very long time, actually, since its foundation. And you see also on their website, but also on their bylaws, there is a very, very clear purpose which is written on paper. And this is the mandate of the shareholders to the management. The purpose and their regenerative ambition is this one. We are in business to save our home planet. And actually, this was renewed about 3 or 4 years ago. And then there are 3 lines, a very concise and meaningful description of the purpose. We aim to use the resources we have, our voice, our business, and our community to do something about the climate crisis. So this is like a broader explanation of what is your purpose, what gives you a meaning as a company, as a business in society. And then there are more specific directions, more specific, let's say, strategic guidelines, which are called technically specific public benefit purposes to implement the purpose. So guarantee everything we make, know how the clothes are made, keep your game in play, so design for circularity and reuse and long life of products, and give back and invest in regenerating the planet, in regenerating society. So the same scheme, we have applied it, if you go on one more slide, to the summit. So This is the purpose, building a regenerative economy together. No one can do this alone. We must be many people, the more the better, but we must be organized, we must be aligned towards a shared direction. And then a concise and meaningful description of the purpose. We exist to accelerate the transition towards a regenerative economy, creating the condition for a shared, durable prosperity. This will create social, environmental, and economic net positive value through a new model of regenerative leadership. And then here you see what we co-designed last June in Rome, the specific public benefit purposes, which are exactly what has been read in the video before. These are exactly the commitments in the declaration. And if you go on one more slide, and this is the kind of organization, this is the mechanic of how this will play out. We'll have the declaration commitments, and then we will be invited the entire path to the summit, during the summit, after the summit. Everyone will be in the condition, we will create the most favorable condition for action, and we will collect and distillate those actions and possibly empower them, amplify them, and set new objectives for the future, and gradually reporting how we are progressing. So just to show you that this declaration is not something up in the air, is really guiding us and is facilitating a shared collective action while leaving the freedom for a huge variety and diversity, which we are sure we will meet before, during, and after the summit. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. I hope this gives you a little bit a clearer idea of the way that we work or try to organize our work, at least, because earlier it was said that we have to organize ourselves to build a new regenerative economy. Now we are heading for the theme of today. And the theme, as I said, is building coalitions. How do we build coalitions? The power of acting together, from competition to cooperation, from independence to interdependence. But coalitions are not so new. There are many old models of coalitions. Leaders who come together to do lobby tricks or purposes, trade unions, even the United Nations. So it's not so old, coalitions. But today we're going to explore a whole new way of coalitions. Coalitions for the common goal, for the common good, greater purpose, and in a much more interdependent way.
Let me give you 3 advice on how to build a coalition. One is persuade the other party that your interest and goal are similar or at least compatible. The second message is that show to the other party that the benefits of working together will enhance their ability to reach their goals. The third message is explain that the benefits of working together are bigger than the cost.
Good cooperation allows groups to share knowledge and resources, increases leverage and visibility, provides a forum for joint consideration of problems, reduces competition for scarce resources.
One of the big mistakes we made, not to get sidetracked, is when we sent the Mayflower to the US, 1 out of 3 people on the Mayflower was a lawyer. And they figured out how to multiply faster than the rest. And it came from the time that you had to do the land rights. The first thing that the Brits figured out was how do we divide the land and the land titles, etc. And that has created an environment that is poisonous, in my opinion. So how do we create that confidence once more, pull these people in, protection, and create these coalitions around very specific projects?
Partners need to be willing to compromise for the larger good. You must watch out for conflicts of interest between individuals, groups, and the coalition. Be sure to outline the decision-making process clearly. In case of sharp disagreement, a formal procedure helps in steering the coalition back on course.
And to comment and guide us through how to build a coalition, I would like to invite Leandro Machado. Leandro is a friend and also a founder of a very nice B Corp. It's called Cause. He himself helped to ignite a a lot of coalitions in Brazil. Leandro, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Before we start, just to remind everyone here, we will have time to interact with you. So if any of you have a question, just put on the chat and we will bring it to Leandro. And Leandro, I know based on your experience and I know you have a lot on coalitions, you develop a methodology, right, on how to build a coalition and what are the main steps to do that. Could you share with us?
Yes, of course, friend. First, let's think about it, and it's on this video that we just saw, that a coalition is an organization of diverse interest groups or diverse individuals that join their assets, their resources to produce a specific change in society, of course. But that change, they're unable to deliver independently or individually. That's why they're getting together. Otherwise, you can go alone and solve the problem and do the change. But so a coalition is an organization of diverse individuals or other organizations that get together to promote a specific change that otherwise they won't be able to do it alone. And of course, some coalitions ignite from day to night. But if you think as a leader, or if you think as a president of an organization that want to change something in the society, and you cannot do it alone, you have to think in some steps, and that we call nature steps. We didn't make this up. We just organized the steps, the core steps, and we talk about 4 steps. The first, actually, there's a first one out of this 4. The first one is you have to have a leader. You have to have a champion of this cause. This person or this organization will find others. Will start the conversations to find others and etc. So it's the step 0. So I would say it's 5 steps, not 4 steps, because you have this 0. You need a leader. With the leader, of course, the first step is to think about the issue and to find the first group of people that are also touched by that issue. What is this issue? What do we have some data about this issue or not? Who are the main stakeholders of this issue? So who is the first group of people or organizations that I can put together to discuss and develop? So first, phase 0 is find a leader or be a leader. Step 1 is to define the issue and find a group of people or organization that deeply care about this issue. In the end of this first step, defining the issue and the group, you will have a founding group, a shared common goal, a data set about the issue, and of course, the will to form a coalition. This group that must have a will to form the coalition. So we can go to the next step. Step 2 is to set up. So you have to think about your why, your how, and who, and decide within this first, small group of actors. Define the kind of organization that you want to have. Define the scenarios, main scenarios that you face, assess opposition, internal assets, etc. And of course, seed money. You have a little bit of money to get organized. So I will say the deliverable of this second clear step that is set up is to have like the golden circle, as Simon Zaydak taught us, is to have the main strategy of this coalition to have some money to start, of course, and you have to set up an org, informal organization or informal organization. Then after the setup, you're gonna want to launch. So the third step is launching, public launching this coalition, because coalition is about getting people together. So you want to be public because you want to get more stakeholders to your cause. You want to aggregate more people and thoughts and etc. So in this third step is clearly explained is launching. You have to have a public launch, a tactical plan, and operations, your first operational organization running. And then the fourth one and the last one is to sustain that coalition, is to nurture relationships, is to keep fundraising, is to do knowledge management, check KPIs, report, and do all it again. So 5 steps. Phase 0, find a leader or be a leader. Step 1, define the issue and the forming group, the founding fathers of this coalition. Then set up this coalition, seed money, golden circle, strategy, etc. Then launch, and finally sustain it. So I would say there's, sorry if I took it longer than I should, but I want to explain all these steps that make it clear.
Yeah, very clear, Leo. Thank you for that. And as we can see, it's not something that we come up out of the blue. It requires a lot of organization. It's like, I can imagine it's like running a corporation because it's too much work. So based on your experience, what are the main challenges, or maybe which is the hardest letter, if I can say it so, in your opinion?
Well, I think that setting up, finding the right people, having a shared common goal, setting up an organization, doing a public launch, that's easy. That's so easy compared to sustaining this momentum, sustaining the movement, for years and years and years. That's the hard part. Because setting up an organization, many of us here could do that in like 2 or 3 months, engaging for a cause, finding the right people, setting up an organization. But the main challenge is to sustain, is the 4th step, is to sustain, all over the years, or as long as you need that. And an organization such a coalition.
Yeah. We are getting quite some questions from the audience, Leandro. So you are raising energy here. And the first question I would like to pose to you from the audience is, what is, in your opinion, an example of a very successful coalition? And what are the most critical steps? So if you would give an example, what, in your opinion, is the best?
It's of course I can tell you about some coalitions like the B Corp Coalition. It's a coalition that changed the landscape of corporations in the last decade or so. Or the Union for Ethical Biotrade that maybe Denise Hills can talk a little bit more of. Natura. I had the chance to, 15 years ago, be in the sparkling, specific time of this coalition. But if you take a look, and if you open your eyes and your ears and take a look around you in your country, you see many coalitions. I can say, for instance, here in Brazil, another specific example. During the pandemic, the Ministry of Health decided, I don't know for what reasons, but they decided not to publish data about COVID. So in 3 days, the main newspapers, the main news outlets in the country formed a consortium of public media to gather state data on COVID and to release it timely. So if you take a look around you, you find many coalitions. So for instance, another type of coalitions that it's pretty common around the Western, at least the Western world, is this companies coalition that they call federations or confederations or associations. They are kind of coalitions. They have a shared common goal. They have shared interests. They finance, they fund this organization, etc., etc. So if you open a little bit your ears and watch, you find.
You see many, Leandro.
Yeah.
What? Maybe Marcello, you can. You had a question. Maybe you can pose it.
Well, I mean, my question is that many of these coalitions also do not succeed over time. Partnerships have a long history, as you said, Lane. In the UN, we talked about partnerships since the 90s, but the history of these partnerships is not always successful. And I want to just add one element that I think is that the sort of shared leadership that comes before you enter into coalitions. And this is something we also in Rome, we had in the leadership session where I saw Kim Pullman was involved. We looked at the actual, in a way, it's the soft culture that underpins the reasons why people come together in a coalition. And often, you know, the people like Otto Scharmer with Thierry Yu is trying to bring leaders down to a common denominator, to a common space, to be able to then, you know, in a way, upscale towards, you know, some deliverables. And it is not easy to do. And so I think sometimes these coalitions fail because the human element is not really well thought through from the beginning. This is not just setting targets, designing strategies together. There is a human factor, the leadership factor, which is very, very important. So I think that's a very important angle also for us as Be for Good leaders. We have the tools, we have the people to help each other and help many other companies to actually develop and master the human element that actually makes this coalition be successful.
Yeah. How do you, can you give a quick comment on that, Leandro, on failure rates of coalitions?
Yeah, Marcelo, you're completely right. I myself have this experience of forming a coalition in Brazil that the first leaders were not glued together with shared vision of that movement, and that movement failed 3 years later. That you're completely right. That's the key point is relationship, is how deep you go in those relationships, mainly in the founding group, mainly in this founding group, because of course after you can handle, but if you not have a very clear shared vision and shared common goals and shared responsibilities, you want to see. And just another quick thing is that sometimes a movement or a coalition is set to last for a certain period of time. So we just have this caveat, because sometimes you wanna that your coalition function for just 2 years, and that's it. But Marcelo, you're completely right.
Yeah, and I saw, Lei, if I may comment, I saw your work and you working through coalitions, and I can tell that it's really key to bring together someone that helps the group to really form a group. So usually when and I saw that by myself, Leandro, and Causi works, it's not about setting the goals, but also to form the group, to form a real team that, of course, has different realities and different objectives, but are there for the same cause. And I can see here that Tom Fels has a very interesting questions. Tom, do you want to comment, please?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think just maybe to comment on the previous point, I think the responsibilities and outlining the responsibilities, in my experience, has been the most important part. because failing which the initial initiator tends to take responsibility for too many things, and everyone else is a passenger. So that's just a comment. My question to Leandro is actually about forming coalitions. The ones that you've spoken about mostly are entities. So formal entities registered as independent organizations, most of which tend to be non-profit. And what is your feeling about the necessity of registering an independent entity versus having a coalition of private actors or private organizations? And what are the downfalls of having more of a loose association or coalition of private actors? And I'm questioning particularly in respect of access to resources to support the movement.
Leandro, we cannot hear you. You're probably on mute.
Sorry. Thank you. Tom, that's a very good question, because that is in the definition of when you're forming a coalition. That's a very hot topic, and why? Because it has to be with the purpose of convening that may vary according to what you wanna achieve, and the context, the landscape that this coalition will operate. So I have one example that I helped to form a coalition here in Brazil, formed by pharma companies with patient advocacy group, institutions, and they didn't want to form like a legal formal organization. They wanted to operate together in their 1, 2, 3 key topics, and all along, each one for their side doing their business. So, but they decided that way. Why? Because for them, it has some issues on independence evoked, some issues about reputation evoked, and so forth and so on. But there are many other groups that wanted to be formal because of funding, because of their fighting against like a very powerful and institutional enemy or adversary, and many others. So it really depends, and we always in this framework of 5 or 4 steps, we always think about it and decide it in this setup phase. So in the very beginning, after you form a group, you decide what kind of organization do you want to form.
Can I ask quickly, just to finalize that point, do you think that corporations are less likely to collaborate in that way versus civil society, or, leaders in their individual capacities coming together who might want to form more of a legal entity, almost to galvanize the strength of the individuals rather than companies coming together and creating some form of perceived conflicts?
Yeah, it depends, because nowadays with all this compliance stuff and etc., some large corporations will want to formalize and have an organization because they have to prove many things and bureaucracy. So they're almost led to that place where you must legalize and form an organization. But I think there's no silver bullet here. You have to assess the context, the landscape, the main goal of that coalition, and what kind of partners you have, and if that way that you're proposing offends or avoids an important partner to be part of the coalition. So it's almost a political decision, depending on the group, the context, and the landscape, the political landscape.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a very interesting example that Juan Diego Mujica, I don't know if I said correctly, Juan, but the GAO is a global alliance for impact lawyers. They work very close together with the B Corp movement for systems change. I think that's a very nice example.
And before we go on, there are more questions. So thank you for your enthusiasm to to participate so much in the chat. We will come back on that later online because we want to step to the next part, and that is that I want to give the floor to our chief storytelling, Daniel, to introduce the breakout session. Breakouts were highly rewarded in our first meeting, our first leaders dialogue, and actually the most rewarded. So we want to give some special attention to that. So Daniel, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned storytelling, because we would like you to tell each other stories, real stories of ways in which you may be starting coalitions, the ways in which you may be wanting to use coalitions in your work to develop your impact, and also tell each other in these small groups of 3 people to really get to know each other and get to know what you're up to. What was the most successful and what disappointed you most about the coalitions that you started? So we will now create breakouts, and it's a very valuable moment to really get to know each other and get to know what's important around this theme of coalitions. So I just now created the breakouts, and I will repeat the questions in the broadcast. But the key element is, what coalitions are you wanting to start? What disappointed you? What were the biggest success factors? I must say, I find it fascinating when I see the right diversity of people. No, I love to say, oh, you need a very diverse group, and then they kind of work together. And it's just like a nightmare, or they're all the same, and then nothing really progresses and nothing really interesting happens. So this balance, I'm not sure if some of you talked about the balance between the different people that need to be part of these coalitions and what worked best for you. Marcello, I hear words of sharing.
I have been part of some very successful coalitions and some not so successful. And I think in our group with Martina and Leandro, we were talking about, I brought up power sharing and resource sharing, that in a way, the really successful coalition mean that the energy, the spirit is to be that you want to pursue the interest of the whole rather than your own interests. And too often we always push our own interest, you know. We want to be number one, we want to have our company be the most successful, and that is not the energy that makes coalitions successful. So there's a real evolution in terms of our leadership, in terms of our own, how we do things in the world, our kind of culture. That's really fundamental.
And now, thank you very much, Marcello. I see there's another Leida, and I'm sorry, my pronunciation is terrible, Reinhardt. I hope I got it right, from the WFTO. You just shared one item that I think can be kind of interesting, and there's beautiful examples of friendships being made as well in the conversations. Leida, do you want to share that key insight that you found?
Yeah, well, maybe it was based on my own experience as well. My background is mostly in UN processes and EU processes, so lobby work, advocacy work, with mostly civil society, I have to admit. So I was one of the founding models of SDG Watch, which is, we started with 10 organizations. It's now more than 400 organizations all around Europe. And I think the success was mostly because of the fact that, first of all, I think Frans Timmermans at the time, Vice President of the EU, was very interested in having a coalition that was helping him in, implementing the SDGs in Europe. So I think it was really a common goal that we all had. The same for at the UN level. I think it's very important that you have coalitions with like-minded organizations, in this case, entrepreneurs, businesses, to really be part of decision-making processes. So one of the things that at least now I'm going to do as WFTO is sitting on the business seat in every next meeting of the UN. And I think I would also like to have a coalition with all of you, because I think it's really time that progressive businesses are indeed very visible and present in this kind of decision-making processes, so that it's not only the International Chamber of Commerce doing the talks at the UN level.
Fantastic, Leda. Thank you very much. Maybe one more comment. I see Elizabeth, and I love your surname, Ma Bonne Étoile. I think it's not your surname, but Elizabeth, you talked about making friends in this call. So is there a role for friendship in coalitions? What did you find out?
Right. I think it's essential. I think that in order to work together and be successful together, we have to appreciate one another. And that's kind of the basis of friendship. So I was very happy. There were just two of us in our breakout room, Eduardo and I, to talk about our experience in coalitions on other sides of this beautiful blue planet. And topics that we share and we have experience in. And every connection, I think, is progress toward our shared common goal.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I hand over to Lane. I'm hearing that basically friendship, appreciation for each other, two pillars of successful coalitions. Lane.
And we now move to the second part of today's dialogue series on coalition building. And actually we're now going to look and speak with two experts and B Corp leaders who have been working with coalitions in the past years. And those two people are Denise Hills and Shaun Russell. We have them here, and we, of course, Leandro, you're also invited to join the discussion later on. But please, Francine, why don't you introduce our two guests?
Of course. Just to comment, it's so good to listen when you come back from the breakout sessions, because one of the main reasons we are here on a journey towards the summit. So we want to create those space for you to interact and be together. Shaun, Denise, so glad to have you here. It's a pleasure. Shaun is a very special guest. He is, I'm gonna read because you have a lot of experience, both of you. So Shaun is founder of Skandinavisk. We can see the brand behind you, Shaun. And chair of the supervisory board of B Corp Beauty Coalition. And I can't forget to mention you are also a steward at Be for Good Leaders, one of the 40 stewards that is supporting our organization. And Denise Hills is UN SDG Pioneer, Global Sustainability Director for Natura & Co Latam. Also a board member, ESG on Finance and Investment Specialist, climate change, biodiversity, human rights activist, and I can tell that she's really activist. It's a pleasure to be with you. Just to give some contents on the topics that we are going to discuss, we are going to share with you some issues that the beauty industry faces, and we can see right now in a very short video.
The cosmetics and personal care products industry is one of the most versatile industries in the world, and an average American consumer uses between 7 and 12 different cosmetics or personal care products every single day.
A lot of the cosmetic products are unrecyclable types of plastic.
Why is it that cosmetic products in particular struggle to be recycled?
So something like this size, is recyclable. This is going to get made into plastic lumber or park benches, something along those lines. Something like this, because of its size and the machinery that's used, even though it might be in a recyclable bottle, it's still full and it's quite heavy, so it probably won't end up with the plastic.
Producing a packaging that you are going to dispose of after one use, that's ridiculous. 80 years ago, this was unthinkable. Packaging had high value, and you wouldn't think about discarding it. You would reuse it. That was the default option.
But packaging is more than a vessel for the product to be transported in. A lot of the selling point and the value of the product is also determined by its packaging. But no matter how beautiful most packaging is, it's still single use.
You have two different kinds of plastic here. Color is an important issue. A lot of black plastics are not recyclable.
The production of petroleum-based plastic emits staggering amounts of CO2 and methane. And plastic, if recyclable in the first place, can actually only be recycled around 1 to 3 times.
This also has very strong chemicals. This is a foundation. So you have to think about the groundwater contamination coming from products like this that's seeping into the environment. This bottle could probably be recycled, but not this top. And there's 552 million shampoo bottles that are discarded annually in the US.
So the eco-friendly products or the eco-friendly packagings are often becoming an addition to an already existing line. It's not something that changes stuff that's already there.
The idea that we've created is throw it all in one bin and then, you know, in the land of unicorns and fairies, the magic will happen. The reality is much grittier than that.
Rethinking the supply chain, rethinking the collaboration between, the brands, distribution, the role of the consumer. Everything has to be re-engineered in some way.
Wow. Plastic is one of the main issues we can say about this industry, and it's not the only one. Now we are going to see another video that will bring the contents because on ingredients source. Natura used to use ingredients from biodiversity, from Brazilian biodiversity, and is one of the main players in Brazil and have been developing an amazing work, I can tell, in order to protect Amazon forest, which we know it's a very relevant ecosystem, global ecosystem, because it affects all of us. Let's see what's happening in Amazonia.
Earth's forests, more than just trees, an entire symbiotic ecosystem, 400 million years of joint plant and animal evolution, creating a complex balance where every organism has a role. It's a system of life designed to function as one. But during 11,000 years of farming, rather than embrace the forest, humans have decimated it.
Amazon is fundamental for Brazil, is fundamental for South America and the 9 countries that shares the Pan-Amazonia. It's important to the whole world. We are more than sure that nobody alone can deal with this systemic problem. If we want to really find a north to deal with Amazon, to keep Amazon alive, to put Brazil and South America in the world with Amazon, and to give the services that Amazon provides to share with the whole world, we need to involve a lot of different people.
We are facing many challenges here, and to start our conversation, Shaun, we would like to start with you. We just launched, not just launched, maybe 1 year ago, launched the B Corp Beauty Coalition, which is quite recent. I would like to understand your intentions. Why did you start at first place? And what are its main goals?
Right. Well, one of my founding co-board members is on this dialogue as well, Jean-Paul Berthaume. So I speak on behalf of him and the other members of the coalition. It started in a conversation about 4 years ago, actually in Amsterdam at the B Corp Summit, where Expansions Laboratoire, a pioneering French cosmetics specialist, and Davines, the Italian hair care experts, got together on a side room and said, we really need to do something about our industry. And individually, both of those companies had been working for years on pioneering new methods, reducing their footprint, calculating their emissions, and generally being better practice versions of the industry. But they felt they didn't have enough of a ripple effect that was affecting the rest of the industry. And in many ways, when I heard about this coalition a couple of years later that was being formed, it reminded me of the challenges that Patagonia and Yvonne Chouinard was mentioning as it relates to organic cotton. And no matter what they did at Patagonia, there was only so little else that happened as a consequence of their actions and the frustrations Patagonia had. But I think Expansions and Davines felt that, well, let's do something about it. Let's put a coalition together of other B Corps in the beauty industry, share better practice, collaborate on new approaches, identify some high-level goals, and ultimately work together to improve the sustainability standards of the entire beauty industry, not just the members themselves.
Yeah, very good. And we know that the packaging, it's only a part of what we are doing, and it's only one issue that the sector faces. We also have a huge challenge regarding narrative, if I may say so. So the current narrative around business in general, it's really hard, and we know we need to change the mindsets and to change the customer mindset as well. How the Beauty Coalition is tackling this challenge?
Well, we have the tremendous honor, but also the overwhelming burden of our industry being defined by the word beauty. And it's not like construction, automotive, or interiors. We are actually protectors of the concept of beauty, if you like. And so it really puts the responsibility on us in the way we approach our work, that beauty is not defined by satisfying the ego of the end customer. It actually starts with protecting the beauty of nature and perhaps reinterpreting the individual's role within that. And there's a phrase that we rally against in our industry, which is beauty consumer, because it's a common phrase that's used through any industry, that's almost used unconsciously nowadays. But it's an example of 20th century capitalism and destruction. And if you think specifically about our industry, beauty consumers essentially are people who are encouraged to contribute to the destruction of the beauty of nature in order to satisfy their own sense of personal beauty. We need to move away from that narrative. And as B Corps, we have the opportunity to lead in that respect. There's another definition that is far more empowering and is representative of the role every one of us have in society, that of citizens. As a citizen, we are aware of our responsibilities to ourselves, to our fellow brothers and sisters, and to the environment that surrounds us. So part of our action won't just be to improve sustainability standards. It will very much be to attempt to change the narrative in what is a very, very large and noisy industry.
Yeah.
Shaun, what I have one short question, and that is, there are such a large amount of companies now, I think over 50 in the Beauty Coalition. How did you manage to do that so quickly? And maybe you can give a short answer on that. And also are you now also inviting non-B Corps? So are you widening this?
Yeah, well, actually, I think by Friday we'll be 60, Lean. So we've more than doubled the size in less than 12 months, and that puts its own pressure on bringing B Corps in and then engaging them and getting them involved. So year one for me was a real learning experience in realizing the founder team and the people who were involved at the very beginning were really the only ones that could generate real value in the first year. So what Leandro was mentioning before, I'm very much experiencing, as I'm sure Jean-Paul is as well. We now need to kind of reset in year two. Those newcomers now need to find their places, whether they be experts in certain fields, whether they contribute to working groups, communications, or sharing of better practice. We now need to pull 60 rather than the 25 we started with. But we will retain a membership criteria that is B Corp only. And that is really because that standard essentially reassures us that any member who has that certification meets the same criteria that we've all met. And therefore, that really is the only set of expectations that we hold for any incoming member.
Good.
Of course, and I'm sure that's the most, the better. The much more company you have, more impact you're gonna generate. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and Denise, I have the privilege to work at Natura for more than 12 years, and I know the company has been working at Amazon for more than a decade or so. First of all, why Amazonia? And I would love that you share the project Amazonia Viva, what it stands for. And if I'm not wrong, I think Natura is also tackling the issue that Shaun mentioned in regards to the clients, to the consumers, and how to bring them to action as well. Can you comment on that?
Thank you, Fran. Thank you all. Amazing topic. I think that just to mention to start, because in some of the ways, many of people doesn't know Natura as a company. Natura is a cosmetic company, and now leaves the name Natura for the holding company. And when we start to describe or thinking about the name of the company, we are calls also ourselves as Natura & Co. And the Co is more than a simply abbreviation of companies, Natura, Avon, The Body Shop, and Aesop. But the Co represents our belief in cooperation, co-creation, interdependent, unite peoples, actors, and dreams in many of the ways. And I think it's a very good explanation about we as we are today in bringing this kind of example to the Amazon. Amazon is one of the most valued ecosystems that we have nowadays. The last tropical forest, huge value in terms of biodiversity, but essential for fight against climate change. There is no way to solve the climate crisis without leaving Amazon. And that's why we choose Live in Amazon, the name of the cause for the whole group, leads by Natura, but we involve the whole group and many other actors. It's Live in Amazon because of it. And the relationship of Natura with the Amazon has more than 20 years. If you were thinking about today of the ingredients of the whole purchase in terms of the value chain, the partnership that we have with communities into the Amazon, we are talking about 20 years of relationship, more than 45 ingredients that are essential for our products that comes from the Amazon, and more than 9,000 families that contributes with this kind of generation in an incredible value in terms of cosmetic technology innovation that comes from the understanding of the Amazon. So the collaborative approach of understanding the value of the forest, the value of the traditional knowledge, and how could we bring and combine together this traditional knowledge, the incredible ingredients that we have into the Amazon, with commitments like zero deforestation. Because when you develop a new value chain, you are generating a true impact in terms of how to develop a bioeconomy of standing forests, how to bring populations like the communities into a prospective, not only prospective value chain, but it's more than a value chain, but now we have Amazon in the heart of the operation. And we're in the last years, you've seen the deforestation into the Amazon was one of the most important things that we should address, not an easy one. Because together we can address many of the things. We are living in Brazil and in some of the ways into the Amazon, a very difficult systems in terms of how to protect. It's more than 60% of the whole Brazilian territory and home of more than 25 million people. It's a huge, we have as Natura 80, 80, 90 communities over there in the whole Amazon. But it's not a simple way to address and be committed with the zero deforestation. We start like bringing the communities as part of how could we help through our activities, through the partnership, in partnership together with like NGOs, with like technical assistance, with like organizations like GAZ and IFC, and bringing not only our knowledge, but sharing this knowledge in order to promote like an enhance of the Amazon in terms of valuation of the forest, the people that live in there, and that has like an amazing and incredible source of inspiration for innovation and technology. Mostly
Denise, I think
our
we would
products,
like to,
the technology that we have comes from this.
Sorry, we would like to interrupt you a little bit because of the time and because of the questions that we still have, also from the audience. So maybe you can share that with Denise.
Yeah, Leila has a very interesting question. Leila, do you want to post your question?
Yeah, I don't want to be on the spotlight all the time, but I mean, I think it's interesting for our members, which are very small. I mean, local communities, SMEs, etc., to be part of the supply chain of what you are doing with the bigger businesses. I mean, Body Shop is doing that with some of our members, and I think maybe it's an interesting cooperation we can think about. But I mean, that was just a question, indeed.
Oh, for sure, Leila. And we still developing new not only in the Amazon, but we have like partnership with mostly SMEs. We prioritize when we have the opportunity to use the value chain as part of the enhance the commitment, not only in cosmetic, but in some of the ways in partnership, in mobilization, in communications, in others. It's like part of our daily businesses. As I mentioned, Amazon, it's the most famous or well-known example by Natura and very important nowadays. But for a company, a big one like this, like we are living here in Natura, when we have like the opportunity not only to partner, but develop a new SME or a new community or a new partnership, the whole value chain, you have an opportunity to promote like more inclusion, human rights, like better access to economics. And it's the reliance of the model in some of the ways when we are looking to like partnership with SMEs, we are not thinking about the value chain. We are thinking about the partnership for the future. We talk about our value chain as it's like we talk about partnership. We are not talking like in just purchase things. We have to partner. We have like to bring the money in the beginning, like we have to be part in terms of the development, because if you're thinking about, as an example for an ingredient, we took like 6-7 years to develop a new one, and we start like discovering based on the traditional knowledge. We put our money, our files, our efforts, and together we develop a new value chain. And since the beginning, we start partnering. And that's why we, for us, SMEs and in some of the way communities and small NGOs, when we start like with communities into the Amazon, we are talking about an indigenous community, quilombola communities, people which are not commonplace in a normal big value chain including for a cosmetic or food companies.
And speaking about the relationship, I understand that governance, when we are talking about building and keeping a coalition alive, is a key. Yes. It's a key key thing. Could you please share, and I will invite Shaun as well, to how are you managing that and what are the relevance of the core team?
Can I add in a few words, please, because we are going to end the program in a couple of minutes. So please, a short answer.
Very short, Lynn. It starts with the governance and the operating procedures that were defined by the pre-founders, worked through in detail. There's a member pledge in there. Everybody signs up to it. There's a board, there's a steering committee, working groups. So it's super clear architecture. The only thing we're missing compared to Leandro's best practice references is that we have no money.
Yeah, amazing. Le, do you want to comment on that?
Sometimes that is a blessing to have no money involved, but if you're planning, of course, a long-term coalition and you're fighting against, really powerful people, at some point you need some money. But sometimes that's the blessing not to have.
Yeah.
You can go directly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have much time, and we are trying to be very cautious with everyone's time today. So I guess we have to move to the end of our second dialogue series, and I would like to invite all of you for the next one because it's a monthly event. So I hope you can join the next ones. Before we wrap up, I would love to mention for you, if you haven't subscribed for the summit, it's going to happen on 11 and 12 of May in Amsterdam in a very beautiful place called Beurs van Berlage. And Marcelo, are you there? Maybe you can comment a bit on the summit because I know you are all behind it. Please.
Well, to say that we already have 623 people signed up, and we go to 1,200, and then it's full. So please, as Francine says, do sign up. Also because people who sign up will have priority in terms of sessions and where they want to go, etc. So we have an app that will make it easier for you to design your own program. So that's sort of my encouragement. We'd love to have all of you come. It's quite phenomenal. We will have like 30 different rooms available, which we didn't have in Rome. So there'll be a much more dynamic program. People can meet each other, informally. They can go to TED-style talks. They can go to plenaries, to breakouts. They can hang out and sit at a cafe with their friends and talk about business. It is really very dynamic. It's more like a festival, a fest, than a summit. And of course, ultimately, we will be launching the Global Cooperative, where we can all work with each other, inspire, learn, do business, and actually walk the talk of a regenerative economy. So if you have questions, email me, send me a text, of course, of Francine and our team. And we keep informing you. We don't want to send you too many emails, but from time to time you will get emails from us. So we're very excited. We have a special guest coming. We can't say who, but we will say that in due course. And there's a lot of traction, big companies, CEOs, and a lot of young people running startups and new companies. So it's a very, very exciting, already 4 months before the summit, we are super excited.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And by today, we can tell that the quality of the human beings that come to the summit is amazing. So we have amazing leaders, and you have the opportunity to share experience and knowledge with very like-minded leaders, I can tell.
So thank you all. I have always the questionable honor to end this leaders dialogue, and I first of all apologize to all of you because I see the enthusiasm in the questions that we not always could answer. I see the enthusiasm with Denise and Leandro and Shaun that I would like to thank very, very much for being here, spending your wise words with all of us. Thank you, Francine. Thank you, Daniel. And I should not forget Marcelo and Eric. It was a big pleasure having you here today. And I should not forget to thank the people in this studio, because this is, as I said earlier, one of the most phenomenal studios in the Netherlands from a technology perspective spoken. So it is a great place to be that we can use for free. So it is a sponsored place by iTeam Global. And last but not least, I want to thank you for spending an hour and a half with us. I hope it was worth your time. I think it was worth your time. And we're looking forward to see you next time in our third Leaders Dialogue. And we invite you for that. But for now, Be inspired.